Welcome in. A touch late, 7 minutes. It's the same amount of time late I am for my job in the morning. Don't worry, you wonderful, good people. I'm giving you the same respect I give my employment. Welcome into another episode of Behind the Glass Sports. I'm Aiden Downs, joined by Will Miller. Today, we're going to get ready for the Georgia Bulldogs coming to town. Will and I are going to take you step by step on how to successfully throw objects and items at human beings that bark. Will, I'm ready for this game. The closer it comes, the more and more I feel like it's either going to be a really good game or Bama's going to boat race them. And I don't see a lot else happening, and it's making me antsy. How are you feeling about it?
Much the same. Yeah, the anticipation's really building. The traffic's starting to come in today for what's sure to be a chaos-fueled weekend. But hopefully, somewhere in the middle of all that, it's a football game of some kind, right? Whether it's an all-time classic or whether it's an Alabama beatdown or even a Georgia beatdown. I don't know. A lot can happen. That probably won't happen. I see a close game no matter who wins. But the excitement's through the roof. I haven't seen a whole lot like it since I've been a student here, which is since 2021. But that's what you expected, right? Everybody's ready. Right. Everybody the hype gives way to the action, and it's basically 48 hours away, more or less. And that's where people are. The excitement is starting to spill over. They're just ready to get to the game early because of enhanced security measures, which is another talking point. But man, it's about that time.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how the enhanced security measures things goes because look. We don't live in a bubble here on Behind the Glass Sports. The real world happens around us as time marches on. I think the VIP in question may need some additional security protocols compared to 2019 when he was last there. So I think even if you were at the last game and you thought, hey, it wasn't that bad, nothing crazy, we didn't have to get there 2 hours early. It's a heck of a thing to be wrong about in a football game like this.
Yeah, it is. But I think that a lot of people, they, like I've said, they just want to get to the game. They just want to get to the city of Tuscaloosa. And that's what's, the impediments to that are what's got a lot of people up in arms. They don't want it to be anything more complicated than as close to the normal process as possible. And obviously that's not going to be happening. And you can't please everybody in any case, but you already had a game that the excitement level was far beyond normal. And then you've had something that's only going to, increase the congestion, increase the crowds, for lack of a better word, the clutter that's going on, things of that nature. I think it's to the point that for a lot of people the game is probably going to be the only enjoyable part of the weekend. But so be it. That's the trade-off that you have. You've got a college football game between two SEC juggernauts ranked in the top 5, and if that's
if you need more than that to have the whole weekend be overall good,
that's what I'm saying. I really
you're
don't
not listening to this show right now.
Yeah, it's almost not even a question.
No, but that was definitely true. That I felt like, honestly, for a lot of game days in Tuscaloosa. Let's be honest. My girlfriend's not a student. We live a little further away from the downtown epicenter of campus. Not a big party drinking kind of guy. Just really like football, and tailgating's fun too. But most of those weekends that the bigger games would happen, life just ground to such a halt because of the tourism traffic from the football team that, the football game was the only thing we enjoyed. And having established that this is going to be one of those weekends for our lovely residents of West Alabama, let's get into what we think the football is going to look like, Will Miller. Later on down the road, I would like to just, walk everyone through my elation on Monday night. But for now, let's unpack the meat and potatoes.
Yeah, this game, I think it's very different from the one that was played in December, and it's very different for a lot of reasons. And I'm not even talking about who is on the sideline and who's not. I think that these teams have moved on from that in their respective ways. It's there are going to be different keys to the game. I think for both sides, I think there's a lot of questions on both sides, um, and I mean, but these teams, they want to play each other, right? It's not that, they moved on from December, they never want to see each other again. No, these are the kind of matchups that you want, the type of games that get you out of bed in the
Yeah,
morning. As a coach, you feel like your life's maybe a little bit easier because you're not having to bark as loud at practice as you might if they're playing Mercer in November, which that does happen. So stay tuned for updates on that here in a couple of months.
it's my least favorite November cupcake team.
Man, I'm partial to the SoCon. I just wish they'd play Sanford, but that's we can discuss that week. This kind
I'm
of
a
game.
Fresno State guy.
This is the kind of game I was talking to my bus driver earlier in the week.
That's
This
a
is the
real one
kind of
right there.
game that causes college football to be worth billions and billions of dollars over the years and major network deals. These are the kind of games that, for better or worse, cause college football to change the entire paradigm of amateur sport across the country. This is all what that leads to.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And so obviously a highly anticipated matchup. Obviously massive. We don't need to come up with the 12th way to skin the cat on how big of a game this is for playoff standings at the end of the season, and SEC standings, and just the landscape of college football. It's the biggest game of the weekend, probably the biggest game of the regular season. There's an argument to be made there, but we're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what we think is going to happen on the football field. And there's a piece of information that came out, I believe, yesterday in the afternoon, and that was the official injury report. That, quite frankly, there's not a lot of lines to read between. I didn't see anything but good news for the University of Alabama football program fans, and I think the thing in particular to look at here is those three questionables along the defensive line. All right. Georgia has not in the past been known for being the team that's in the best shape. Jalen Milroe is a scrambling quarterback. We have extreme speed in the wide receiving core this year that is going to be difficult to keep up with for a long time. I think you could really see this game potentially kind of get one-sided quickly if Alabama is able to take advantage of Georgia's front four getting a little gassed earlier in the game than most people would expect them to because of Jalen Milroe's scrambling ability.
I would agree with that. And conversely, the Alabama defense, it's not on the front four. But big news on the Malachi Moore front. He suffered a head injury against Wisconsin. He's not even on the injury report, and so that's a pretty strong indicator he's full go. I think in this game, you're in week 4, week 5, game 4 for these teams, both on a bye last week. You want to be on the healthier side when you're in December at the SEC title game. Maybe it's been a long season and you're just beat up in the way that comes with that. You don't want to be at that point at this part of the year. And I think
Right.
Georgia's a lot closer there than Alabama is. You see a lot of names on that Georgia injury report, and it's not optimistic that those guys are going to play. The ones that aren't listed as out. So, I think Alabama's winning the battle of the training tents that Alabama invented and everyone copied a number of years ago.
Does that count as winning off the field?
It can, sure.
Okay. All right.
But yeah, I think Jalen Milroe's scrambling is going to be a big part of this game because I think they'll go downfield a lot, but everybody always parrots the Jalen Milroe intermediate passing. I don't know how much of that they'll dial up, to tell you the truth. I think they want to establish the run, both from a Jam Miller and Justice Haynes standpoint and a Jalen Milroe standpoint. I think between that and getting the guys open downfield, that's going to make up the crux of the offensive scheme this weekend. Can they go into the bag elsewhere and pull something else out if they need to? Sure, probably. I mean, this is the highest level of college football there is. It'd be asinine to suggest otherwise. I think that's out there. But both these teams are going to want to stick to the plan until they don't have to. That's what I see, and I see Jalen Milroe's athleticism being a big part of that plan.
I have the feeling that this is probably going to be a close game. Feeling 60, 70%. It's just gonna be a close game. We're gonna see who wins. Good football all around. The thing I think could be, kryptonite for Georgia. Not only is Jalen Milrow scrambling, but to me, again, you look at where a lot of those injuries are for Georgia, and God only knows how many people have mono that they didn't put on that list. And we can get into what the reality of that is going to look like. I think that's such an albatross of a storyline in the college football world that nobody really knows what to expect as a result of that. So, but we'll circle back to that. If Alabama's able to hit a deep shot early, just one, maybe two, Ryan Williams, Jeremy Bernard, anybody, I think that allows them to go ahead and put their foot on Georgia's throat as far as the run game goes. As soon as you've got to sag back and get back and drop back those safeties to protect against the deep ball, it's going to open up even more than already was going to be open to you in the run game. And with the way the offensive line has been coming along and the way the wide receivers are blocking on these running plays and the way that your running backs are really, the two big freshmen from last year, Richard Young and Justice Haynes, are stepping up and slowly turning into stars. You could see this be the sort of announcement to the world that, like, hey, it's not just WKU. It's not just these other teams that we can run the ball against. Hey, maybe Kalen DeBoer is going to bring back some old school Nick Saban ball and smash your throat against Georgia.
Yeah, I said this to Joe, earlier in the week. And I think it's true. This running game it's going to be worked back into this offense, and I think the offense as a whole, people are concerned about it, but look at their point totals: 63 and 42 twice. You tell me that's close to 50 points a game. I don't think they'll score that many against Georgia. The run the ball philosophy, I think that's going to slowly start making a comeback. You didn't see the smash mouth hard nosed stuff as much over the last couple of years, and when you talk about having backs that were utilized in the pass game more, like Jahmyr Gibbs, and don't get me wrong, I would have used him in such a capacity too, type of player that he was. Probably the most underrated portal era transfer for Alabama, if you ask me. But anyway, I digress. I think these running backs, particularly Jam and Justice, you can do either. But I think that these coaches see that those guys can go between the tackles and run the football, and that's what they will do if it works. And so you're going to see, I think, more of that.
Do you think that Alabama is able to establish the run between the tackles, because that's really what counts, as far as getting the offensive tone going? Do you think Alabama can establish the run without hitting or damn well threatening the deep ball once or twice? Or do they have to do that
with a healthier offensive line? Yes, we've seen how that group has kind of been thrown off center a little bit because of the issues. You had Caden Proctor being injured in warm-ups before the season opener, and then you had Pritchett not playing most of the game against South Florida, and then when he did come in, he affected the game in a tremendous way. But he didn't play for 3.5 quarters. You're going to see those guys, and they're going to be a part of things. I think the adjustment, they're going to have time to adjust with those guys. You haven't seen, I don't think, the best of what the Alabama offensive line can offer, and I think you'll get a glimpse into that on Saturday. And if that is the case, then yes, I think they'll be able to run the ball in the trenches, and that's and Georgia has that ability. I mean, Georgia has Trevor Etienne, who is one of the best running backs in all of college football. I think that's there for both teams, but if you're Alabama, like I said, if you don't necessarily want those mid-range passes to become something you have to rely on, then running the ball is going to be the buffer between that and the deep shot. And that's what you need to be able to do it with some appreciable degree of success throughout, not just, on one drive or two drives, throughout the game.
It needs to be something that, like, you're not getting lucky on it. They
Right.
need to feel threatened if you line up in the I formation.
Exactly.
And that's the reality. If they don't, they don't. Let's talk about this mono thing, if you don't mind.
This is the first I've heard of it. Whatever it is, I mean, you're in the driver's seat here. What context you got?
Well, you got reports coming out, you know, all over the place that allegedly there's been a mono outbreak in the UGA locker room. And I don't know, Will. You tell me, am I getting got here? Because I feel like if I'm getting got, it's a pretty good one because I'm seeing some legitimate outlets reporting this stuff. And then I just feel like this is supposed to be a bigger storyline. So, is this real?
I don't know
Now you're
one way
making
or
me
the other.
wonder.
I don't know. I haven't even so much as seen anything about it on social media, and without telling on myself, I'm on Twitter far too much in a given day. I have seen all the funny signs that people have started making here in Tuscaloosa. There was a great one over on in what I believe is the 13th Street area where it's UGA, you got arrested, 1-800 DUI, which is just hilarious. But as far as mono goes, it's the first, this conversation is the first I've heard of it.
I think I might have got. I think I might have got. But
Was one of the accounts that tweeted it Richard G. West?
no, no,
Oh.
no. He nor Vinny have gotten me. Richard got me the first time I saw him. Richard got me. Vinny, I've had the pleasure of interacting with in person. I know his deal, but Richard got me. Richard got me good. So Will, with the injuries George is dealing with, I mean, let's assume I got. Okay, so there's 4 offensive players listed on this injury report: offensive line, 2 wide receivers, and a running back. We've talked a lot about how Carson Beck. We know he's a good quarterback. We know he is, and we think he might even be a great one. But there's been nothing at Georgia in his career so far that's required him to display that to us, for him to elevate the team necessarily. Do you think that maybe this is an opportunity for us to see that from Carson Beck? You're down a few guys against Alabama in Tuscaloosa. Obviously it's an opportunity, but do you think that's something that we see? Is it something you would expect to see from him? His ability to step up in that moment.
That's one of my questions for this game. Carson Beck's obviously good, but is he remarkable? I wouldn't say so. Other than, and this is important, very underrated quality, his propensity to not turn the football over. Obviously, that's, and I said it doesn't get talked about enough. You win and lose games off that stuff. Georgia was lucky to escape Kentucky, and, who knows, they put the ball on the deck, a bunch of times or throw, 9 picks in 3 games or whatever it is that Auburn threw or some obscene number like that. Then they probably lose games like that. But has he taken that next step? Has he had a next level performance? Has he performed like Quinn Ewers against Alabama? And then, like the Michigan game, he was really good.
Right.
Quinn Ewers, to me, could win the Heisman. Has he performed like, Jalen Milroe did in the SEC championship versus Georgia? I mean, we saw
He
the
hasn't,
quarterback
and
pool that game. Has Carson Beck done anything where you're like, oh, Georgia won this game? Not that they're in too many close games, but oh, Georgia won. Did no, and you can say that about Alabama. You can say game because of stuff Jalen Milroe did.
yeah,
I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying Carson Beck is bad. I'm not saying he's not invaluable to the team. I think if you take him off the field and replace him with Brock Vandegrift, uh, things go differently in some of these close games that they are in. And they've got some tough games this year at Alabama, at Texas. I mean, he's going to have the opportunities to put that on display if it's in there.
I think I'm with you. Like I need to see it in this game because everything you've said is true. This is the problem with our show is you, me, and Hardy so often we just agree too much. Not a whole lot of fiery debate on the program for the listeners to enjoy. But I agree with you. He's clearly good. Remarkable is an excellent word to use. I like that word choice there for what you haven't seen from him. You almost have to see it this year, right? It feels to me like he's on this precipice of like let's say right now, late first round, early second round, like back end of this quarterback class kind of quarterback is how I feel about him because I haven't seen him prove it, and I haven't seen him do it with 2 of those blue chip players down for a game.
I honestly think this is the Georgia quarterback curse. I mean, Jake
Yeah,
Fromm was exactly the same way. Stetson
that's
Bennett's the
fair.
exception. Love him or hate him, whether you think Stetson Bennett is any good at football or not, I've heard varying opinions on the topic. He won that team football games.
Yes.
But like you look at Aaron Murray, for example, to me, one of the most underrated SEC football players of the 21st century. You look at a guy who set many conference records, program records, and,
And if I'm not mistaken, after one Matthew Stafford had come through.
did nevertheless the biggest games of his career, they lost
Yeah.
at nearly 100% clip. I think about the LSU game in the SEC championship where they ran into that buzzsaw. I think about the South Carolina game in 2012 on the road where Georgia still ended up having a chance to compete for the SEC. They lost that game. They didn't look good in that game. They were lucky to escape Florida that year, and then they lost to Alabama in the SEC championship. And then all their bad breaks the year after that. That team had so many injuries, in 2013. But the point being, I mean, every time they lined up across somebody with implications, and he was the
It went
quarterback,
poorly.
they didn't win,
Yeah.
and that has to count for something. And in Carson Beck's case, I mean, how many games has the guy been in that mattered like that? SEC championship last year, he got beat. I mean, Stetson won those national titles.
Yeah. And that was and the teams he beat in those games. Well, not the TCU game.
Has
But
Carson Beck shown you any type of, for lack of a better term, fire under his backside when it comes to the games like on Saturday? Every light is going to be magnified. Every outlet is going to be tuned. Every person with even a tangential understanding or fandom of college football is going to be dialed in somehow. Is he the guy for those types of moments? Maybe he is. It's not definitive yet.
no, it's absolutely not. I think it's all really good assessment there. And I think I know two things coming away from this and heading into the game on Saturday. One, that Carson Beck stands to make or lose tens of millions of dollars on Saturday because this is going to be one of the final chances he gets in his career to, go ahead and put the proof in the pudding before he serves it. And if he plays poorly and loses the game, he's probably a fourth, fifth round guy. And if he plays well and elevates his team and wins it, he's a first round pick. But the second thing I know after all of that is that you talk about the guy that can step up and elevate his team, and your team can win big, important, momentous games because of your play. There is a guy out there like that. His name is Jaden Daniels. Will Miller. Oh my God. There's a quarterback in Washington, D.C. Like a legitimate.
And soon he'll be in
Bonafide.
Woodbridge, Virginia.
Oh my God. But he'll have 2 Ds.
Oh, man. Look, and talk, yeah, you're exactly right. He actually is a good antithesis to what we're talking about because, I mean, honestly, we don't know how LSU's season will shake out this year specifically, but assuming it's like terrible, there's a strong possibility that at the end of this year, we could be looking back saying Jaden Daniels is the reason Brian Kelly has an SEC job. You talk about a quarterback that was dynamic. You talk about a quarterback that showed up. And against Alabama last year, he did everything he could.
Yeah.
He did everything possible. And he pretty much gave up his own body to try to win that game.
Yeah. I mean, went out there and played
won a Heisman Trophy. I mean, anyway, yeah, no, and it was great to watch performance against the Bengals. I hope he succeeds. And, I'm kind of ambivalent on Jaden Daniels as a player. I didn't downright detest him like a lot of my peers did last year. I'm more invested in the idea of the Washington franchise being good again, incentivizing the stakeholders to get the RFK Stadium site, build up something truly remarkable, state of the art, whatever superlative that you want, and usher in this new era where hopefully this team that has some of the most Super Bowl championships in NFL history is on the map again. If Jaden Daniels orchestrates that, so be it.
And he's I really hope it sticks this time. As long as it sticks for more than 15 and a half games, I'm satisfied. But honest to God, I don't think that there was ever any point in the time that Robert was still himself as a player in his rookie season. I don't think there was ever any point, even the coming out party against the Saints, the Vikings game, with the first big run, the week 17 Dallas game in FedEx Field to clinch the division title that year. I don't think any of that was as just, oh my God, I'm watching a once in a generation game spectacular as what Jaden Daniels went out there and did. And obviously, what Jaden Daniels did, 91.3% completion rate. One of the balls that you missed the completion on was just a huck out of bounds. And the other one was just you and your wide receiver didn't really know what page you were on. And then the next time you ran that play, you made it happen. All right. See the 55-yarders from McLaurin. So such a prolific night. I know that's not the expectation. That's not where Jaden Daniels is building up to, but that is a step or three above what we can expect a good night to be for Jaden Daniels. I mean, if Jaden Daniels came in here and was a 65% completion percentage guy, he'd be one of the better things we've seen in my lifetime. But he comes in here and he says, hey, my third game of my career in the big leagues, I'm going to make you feel like you might be able to reasonably expect 75% of my passes to be completed per season. Incredible. This fan base has never seen a quarterback like that. And I mean fan base. I don't mean people my age. You go back, one of the reasons that we argue for Joe Gibbs to be one of the greatest coach of all time potentially is 3 Super Bowls, 3 different quarterbacks. None of them are in the Hall of Fame. Not a single one of them. The quarterbacks in the Hall of Fame for the Washington Redskins are.
Well,
Sure
Jimmy
Sonny Jurgensen.
Garoppolo is the reason people are still having the rose-colored glasses that Kyle Shanahan is worth a squat as a head coach. Everybody who knows me knows my opinion about Kyle Shanahan as a head coach. And I also support this argument because he made Jimmy Garoppolo look upper tier. And
Yep.
I got a lot of respect for the Eastern Illinois Panthers pipeline, Tony Romo, Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't understand how that one place can produce 2 multi-year NFL starting quarterbacks in the 11-year span that they did. That's nuts to me for a school that small. Meanwhile, Alabama, really is yet
We
to have
finally got one a few years ago.
Yet to have a guy definitively, outpace the class of the league that won't be forced into retirement in his 20s because of head trauma. Anyway, another digression by me, but that's very fascinating. But point being, yeah, no, but I think Jaden Daniels, gifted athlete. I think he really developed over his, years in college football, which you want, but it doesn't always happen anymore. I think you see a guy that definitively, distinctly, and encouragingly, if that's even a word, just is better than when he first burst onto the scene in 2019 by beating Justin Herbert. Talking of things or people that are overrated, Jesus, I've never seen the likes of it in all my life.
I wasn't quite in that truck with you when you first started down the road, but I caught back up and I climbed out the sunroof. I'm in the bed. If you don't mind popping the slide
Yeah,
open.
no, I got
It's a
you.
little cold out
And
here.
Trevor
I'd like some
Lawrence can join after that atrocity earlier in the week.
No, he's got to stay in the bed.
Fair.
And I'm tying Justin Fields to the roof.
Well, hey,
maybe
look,
the nose and cutting the brake line.
He's with a real coach now. Let's give him a chance.
That's fair. He is 3-0. All right.
And Russell Wilson is a scratch for the Broncos revenge game. God, that was hilarious. The game was not hilarious, but that was hilarious.
I can't believe what's going on with him. I like.
And he dresses in full pads. Like, he is the tackiest human being that ever suited up in an NFL uniform. I don't even think it's up for debate anymore. You might have said Kirk Cousins with the I'm a family man with the Bible verses and such. No.
But he's so genuine about it.
It is not him.
No.
It is definitely Russell Wilson. Man, but hey, before we wrap it up, we got to get our score predictions for this Georgia game. We got to let the people know. We got to talk numbers.
Okay. All right. What was the call I made at work? I put $6 on it. Not really. It was imaginary, but I did make the call to a coworker of mine. 2 touchdowns, two rushing touchdowns, more than 80 on the ground, at minimum 1 run of 20 yards or more from Jalen Milroe on Saturday. It's either going to be 24-23 either way, or it's going to be 42-17 Bama. Those are the only 2 ways I see this going.
I'm going to say 28-24 Alabama wins. I believe Jalen Milroe will outplay Carson Beck. I believe they'll be about even. The teams will running the ball. Passing wise, up and down for both guys. Maybe I see the lights being a little bright for Carson Beck. Maybe he'll adapt, but by then it will be too late. Close game, maybe not the prettiest, but also not the ugliest. I think it'll be a really good game of football that people remember, and I'm saying 28-24 Alabama wins.
I want to get one more thing in here before we go, because I think it's very important. Because we, as people that don't gamble on this program, like to, advise people on how to gamble, and we don't really know if they make any money, but who cares? It's not our money. If Georgia's starting,
we have a no going to the Great American Ballpark Sportsbook window and proffering inside information to the sportsbook staff policy on this program. Anything else goes.
I fell off the train 19 syllables ago. But I just want to let you know.
Google it after we get off.
I will. I'll give it a Google. I encourage you good people at home to do so as well, or not.
They probably know what I'm talking about. It was a Brad Bohannon joke.
Oh. I can't believe I didn't put that together. So, if you see either of these Georgia DBs that are going to be paired up against Jeremy Bernard and Ryan Williams all daggum night, if you see either of them individually not give up a touchdown on the evening, go ahead and place $20 on the futures bet that guy's getting taken in the first round. Just putting it out there. And that's it. On a terrible disappointment, we're only going for 30 minutes tonight. Actually, I forgot about that. I was waiting for you to say something. So, Cowboys Giants tonight. I hope the stadium burns to the ground and nobody dies, but the football game ends without a score.
I got the Cowboys. MetLife Stadium sucks. That's my piece on the game.
I'm taking the Cowboys in an absolutely ugly 16-9 victory.
Can NFL Instagram afford this? We'll soon see.
All right, that was realistic. Get out of here. Open the live chips and drink a lot of water before bed. It helps in the morning. Good night.